Hello, everyone. Hello. Let's go. We're here. We're going. We're going. Hey, Jaber. Hey, Deleuze. Hope everyone is great tonight. It is 7 p.m. on Tuesday, October 25th. I should say 7 p.m. on the East Coast of the U.S. As always, we like to give a couple minutes for people to come in and get settled. What's up? If you're just joining us, or if you're just joining us, say hello. Let us know you're here. Tell us where you're from. And I think tonight, let's go with favorite scary movie. Favorite scary movie. And yeah. So if you're just joining us, hello, welcome, welcome. Please come on in, grab a seat. I realized as we were going online, I should have worn a costume. And it's been a busy day, so I didn't think of that. I probably have something. Thank you. I'm glad to be back. I was here 2 weeks ago. We were giving away all kinds of stuff, but thank you, Jaber. It's good to see you. Yeah, but I think the time before that, yes, that is correct. Before that, we had a death in the family, and I was away for a couple weeks, I think. So thank you, appreciate that, Jaber. If you're just joining us, please say hello. Let us know where you're from and favorite scary movie. And you know what? I don't watch horror movies either, so that is fair. Although there's some movies that are so bad they could be considered scary. I could probably name a few. Wait Until Dark, good one, Anne. Although I will say that now being obviously engaged to Katie, she loves scary movies. So we watch a fair amount now, especially because it's Halloween season. So we watched Orphan the other night. Has anybody seen Orphan? It was awful. They're mostly all awful. Like I'm still waiting for a decent one. These were bad, or this particular one was bad. Mean Girls. Those girls were really scary. That is true. Absolutely true. All right. Just give it a few more seconds and then we'll go ahead and get the yep. See, thank you. Oh, the Halloween series. Yeah. Yeah. Katie's making me go to a haunted house on Halloween and I'm not happy about it. I don't like haunted houses. I have enough nightmares. I don't need to go to see something, but she loves that stuff. So we're gonna go on a double date to go see this haunted house. She did one a couple weeks ago that was supposedly like the scariest one in Georgia, and she came back just sweat through a mess. Hello from Central California. So yeah, if you're here, if you're joining us, welcome, welcome. I'm gonna go through the opening, but please say hello. Let us know where you're from and your favorite scary movie, or if you don't like scary movies, name a movie that scares you anyway. That's just bad. But yeah, I feel you on that. All right, so welcome, welcome. My name is Ethan Smith. I'm a national advocate for the International OCD Foundation, and I'm so glad you are here. Candyman, I did see in high school. Oh, that must have been the remake Candyman. But I remember seeing the original too. Yeah, it's weird for sure. So real quick, this community conversation is intended to serve as educational content. It's not intended to replace therapy. For treatment-related questions, please be sure to work with your local provider or contact a local clinician. The International OCD Foundation is not a crisis hotline. If you're in crisis or ever feeling suicidal or unsafe, please go to your local emergency room or call 911 or the 988 suicide crisis lifeline. You can do that by dialing 988. You can also access it online at 988lifeline.org. As always, we want to create as safe a space as possible and be as kind and respectful to everyone as possible. Keep in mind that this is a public forum, so as you ask questions or divulge personal information, just keep that in mind that this will be replayed. This will be replayed on all of the social platforms, but we always want to be respectful and kind to others as we are here sharing our stories, because we are here to support one another. And just a heads up, thank you, Skyla. It appears that possibly Facebook comments may not be working. That may be why we're not getting. So if you're on Facebook and you're watching and you're having trouble commenting and you have a YouTube account, if you want to jump over to YouTube, perhaps we can alleviate the questions or the lack of comments, a lack of ability for me to see comments that way. And I can give everybody a few moments to jump over to YouTube to do that. In the meantime, if you are on Facebook and you can only be on Facebook, please feel free to comment and question. I know Skyla on the back end can can see and will share any good comments or questions with us. If they're bad, they won't be shared. I'm so sorry. All right, so let's get started. How are y'all doing today? Fill me in. I'm gonna read Delucy. Hey, y'all should do a town hall on unique OCD obsessions because that's an undiscovered issue. Interesting thoughts about that, Deleuze. So, it's tricky because it's tricky because well, I guess uncommon obsessions or unique obsessions. I think it's cool for so OCD is OCD is OCD, right? So obsessions and compulsions, it's all OCD, regardless of the symptoms or subtypes. Hey, Beth Carducci. Hey, Alex, sissy in the house. Alexandra Reynolds blessing us with her presence. God bless. So if you're just joining us, welcome, welcome. Please feel free to ask questions, comments, and I'll start off some topics as well. But Deleuze asked a really interesting, or made a really interesting statement at 7:05 p.m., which is y'all should do a town hall on unique OCD obsessions because that's an undiscovered issue, an undercovered issue. So I love that and I don't like that. And here's what I'm thinking, and I love your thoughts as well. Definitely, I think there are more stigmatizing obsessions and compulsions. I think there are, to your point, unique obsessions in the sense that we might feel that there are obsessions that are more common than others and less common than others. I would also say, though, that they may or may not be common or uncommon because people aren't talking about them, but they may be just as prevalent because people are having them, but there's just a lot of stigma associated with them. And because we don't necessarily want to educate around this idea of specific obsessions and compulsions or symptoms or subtypes are rarer or harder to treat or more different than others. We want to be careful of that because that in and of itself really impedes treatment. So I do like the idea of that, Deleuze, and I'm curious to your thoughts or anybody else's thoughts. Yeah. So your comment below, which is I know NoCD talks about HOCD is limited only by imagination, and it might be worthwhile to dispel some shame around that. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think I think we do a pretty good job of touching on as many subjects and subtypes and symptoms as we possibly can. And we do a lot of advocacy around that for sure. I just want to be careful to, not in a way, in an attempt to have it feel inclusive by talking about sort of underserved subtypes and symptoms. I don't want it to feel like those are special in the sense that, all OCD is OCD and it's all treated the same way, although it's nuanced. So I definitely think, with that being said, and maybe this is all you meant, Deleuze, is that, we want to cover as many subjects and as possible, and as many subtypes and symptoms. And so I'd be curious if you had any specific suggestions on unique OCD obsessions that you might be thinking of that you feel are currently undercovered or that you haven't seen content for, because we'd be happy to add them to our list. We're constantly taking suggestions. I don't think I explained well what I was trying to say, and it probably came off as me saying something that I didn't mean, because in reality, we obviously do different subjects every week: relationship OCD, religious scrupulosity, moral scrupulosity, contamination, just right. We obviously cover a lot of different things: taboo, intrusive, sexual, violent thoughts, harm, self-harm, harming other people. But I'd be curious if you had any other in mind. So, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So I just real quick, I wanted to read from Allison. My daughter won an award on her documentary on OCD and went to the IOCDF office for the award ceremony. Well, congratulations. That's pretty spectacular. I love that. Yeah, if you're just joining us, for some reason, I can't see comments that are posted live on Facebook right now. So if you have a YouTube account and you're able to access it, hop on over there so I can see your comments live. If not, please feel free to comment on Facebook. And Skyla now has to work harder and pass along your comments and questions which is no problem at all. But if you happen to have access to YouTube, that would be great as well and helpful. I have a bunch of suggestions for town halls. Oh, awesome. You already said that, didn't you? Duluth, be interested, and I'll give out my information as well. Captain Cass at 7 to 5 p.m. said this isn't totally OCD related, but my college has had 3 suicides in the past month. Other than checking in on people and bringing awareness, knowing resources, is there anything I can do as a student? That's a great question, and thank you for bringing it. Well, first of all, I'm really sorry that's happened, and I'm sorry that if you've known any of those students, and I think that's a wonderful question. I think ultimately, the conversation then becomes about, mental health and mental health access, and people not having to suffer alone and feel like that there's not help, or that there's support or a solution. People that are feeling extremely depressed, or are considering or contemplating suicide, often from the outside perspective, it's hard to see it or notice it. They seem happy. They see everything, like everything's going on great. It's hard to tell. I think the best thing we can continue to do is destigmatize the conversation about mental health, destigmatize the fact that it is okay to talk about if you're not feeling well. It's okay to talk about anxiety and depression and other mental illnesses, to make it an open conversation, and know that there is support and there is help and there is lack of judgment, out there, and helping people. And, caption, one thing you could possibly do if you want to get involved is, looking at your college resources. If there's a mental health office or resources on campus, what they can do in light of that. Are they being proactive? Is there opportunities to send emails or distribute pamphlets or whatever, just talking about mental health awareness in general, and bringing that up and letting people know that there's nothing wrong with seeking help, that it's okay. If you're an athlete, or, it doesn't mean you're not tough. There's so many stigmas as to why, people don't seek help. It can be really difficult. And unfortunately, college is such a tumultuous and stressful time for folks. A lot of time we see a lot of OCD uptick at college. And I'm sure, that's true of multiple disorders and diseases. So, I love that you want to check in on people and bringing awareness and knowing resources. But I mean, as a student, I would possibly go to the mental health office and see what they're doing. Let them know that you're interested in raising awareness that there's mental health services available. If there aren't mental health services available at your college, or good ones, perhaps you can, some of in your area. The cool thing about advocacy is really it's only limited to our own imagination and what effort we want to put into it. So, we can definitely talk offline and email. There's some amazing folks. I know Alexandra's on here, and Alex has a lot of expertise in this area as well. Probably a little more than I do, but regardless, definitely email me. I'll give it out at the end of the night, and we can talk about some ways in which you might be able to participate and raise awareness on campus, so we can hopefully prevent other potential suicides from happening. But I'm sorry you've gone through that, and that's a great question. And thank you for wanting to spread the word and let people know they're not alone. And I think, some sort of awareness campaign around that, around opportunities from your school to seek help or treatment, let people know they're not alone, or even, access to resources, and ways in which we can engage the community to let them know about those. Maybe you can host a movie night, or do something over Zoom, or a virtual event, or a live stream, or an Insta live, something like that. So thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that. And anybody has any questions about anything, obviously we want to stay to OCD, but like anything mental health related, please feel free to ask. So thank you for asking. Great question. And just in general, apologize for my inability to form thoughts into words. It's been a long day, as it often is on my Tuesdays, but I'm just excited to be here and sharing this with all of you. If you're just joining us, welcome, welcome. We threw out the question, what's your favorite scary movie, in honor of Halloween? And I'll just keep scrolling through. And also, again, if you were on Facebook, for some reason, I'm not seeing the comments tonight. So if you can hop on over to YouTube, if you have an account, that would be awesome. Otherwise, feel free to post your comments, and Skyla will flip them over in our private chat so I can read them aloud. So thank you so much. Eric Broach in the house, driving and listening. We'll take that, Eric. We were just talking about trivia and how you ran us out of business. Hope you're doing well, Eric. N. Nilaso R wrote, obsessions and compulsions are as numerous and as varied as there are flavors of ice cream. I would argue that there may be more as flavors of ice cream, but that is absolutely correct. Hi, Lois from Long Island. I hope you're well. So as response at 7:08 p.m., Caption wrote, I know it's heartbreaking. Selfishly, I have a fear of self-harm theme of OCD, so it's freaky for me and all of my non-OCD friends. I just wish there was something I could do, Um, well, on that note, I too, some of my themes and subtypes revolve around self harm and being afraid that I may, you know, and it can be really uncomfortable and scary. I know it was, and as far as yourself and what you can do, there's treatment, there's resources, there's amazing online. Both social media accounts and videos, and you can definitely check out iocdf.org for tons and tons of resources on um, OCD and the different subtypes and symptoms and seeking treatment and all of that. Because the good news about OCD is, as painful it is it's highly treatable. And we just want to help people get effective, affordable care as much as we can and access to care. So, Deleuze wrote, in my personal experience, my OCD usually goes to any extent to disturb me, and some of the existential thoughts it comes up with are brilliantly insane. Yeah, OCD. Thank you for that, Deleuze. OCD is quite tricky, and it uses our brains against us because it's using us. I think that OCD attacks the things we value most. It attacks our values, which makes us particular which makes it particularly insidious. So that is why they can be disturbing. That's why it can really twist things around. You think you've got it figured out, and then it throws something at you that is even bigger and bolder and more brazen, and you're like, oh no, okay, well, yeah, I didn't think about it that way. So it's got our own creativity and our own brains to mine and grow power from, which is why the acceptance of uncertainty is so important. Because if we're willing to accept the uncertainty aggressively and with attitude and passion, and be willing for those potential fears to exist, understanding that we have OCD and a diagnosis of OCD, that really sucks the power out of it. It's why we can't outthink OCD. So much of it is illogical. We don't want to get in the game. It wants us to think. It wants us to try to figure it out, as opposed to just kind of, sure, scream, yell, try and scare me, and I'm just gonna wave and say, okay, maybe, maybe not, and move about my day. So, but you're absolutely right. All right, let's see here. Hey, Ethan moved across from Facebook. Scary movie, forget that. Watch a UK series called Battersea Poltergeist. I'm in. Oh, hey, Rachel. I didn't realize that was you. I'll check it out, Rach, for sure. And Deleuze wrote, I feel like society just doesn't care no matter what they say. They're just too involved with themselves. I know it can feel like that for sure, but that's why we're just not going to shut up. We're going to keep being loud and empowered and talk about mental health and mental illness and OCD and everything else in an effort to, because this affects everybody, whether it's OCD or anxiety or depression. At some point in your life, people are struggling, and obviously people are not talking about it as much as they should. So this is, sort of common humanity. The common denominators, we all struggle at some time in our lives, whether it's a disorder or just an episode. And so I think that, we have to help people move away from this idea that, addressing it is weakness. No different than, like, if you broke your arm, you're not weak for going to the doctor to, get it fixed or a cast on it or surgery or whatever. Nobody would say, oh, you need to get your shit together because, you went to the doctor for a broken arm. And we really need to get to that place in mental health where we can say, yeah, I went to the doctor for my mental health and I got better. And that's a non-stigmatizing statement to say. But I agree with you at large, for sure. But I think we're making a difference. And in fact, Andrew David recommended Psycho, 10 Cloverfield Lane, Wait Until Dark, Can't Decide just one. You can pick three. I'm okay with that. Oh, thank you, Neil Usar. Okay, Neil Usar. Thank you for specifying. Battling towards recovery from hoarding disorder. I now know full well that mine was triggered and perpetuated by CPTSD and feelings of abandonment. I am a rescuer. Well, thank you for sharing. Um, I'm glad you are battling towards recovery. It can be a battle, but it is reachable, and excited to hear. Thank you for sharing, for sure. Um, just reading Luce's comment. Honestly, you're right, but I do think people are going to surround you with care and compassion in all environments. No, I agree, but I don't think it's all black and white, right? Our OCD brains tend to think in like all black and white. Like, who can we touch? Who can we make a difference for? Who can we reach? Who can we start a conversation? I think there's going to be people that are just, you know, buttheads, and I think that those people are, if they're not interested. I know that, over the past 5, 6 years, the IOCDF has, tried to educate individuals that misuse the term OCD or post stigmatizing comments, people that are in the public. And most of the time when we educate, they're very open to that. And that's great. Most of it comes from ignorance and miseducation, and it isn't maliciously intended. But there have been times where they've doubled down and just don't care, and they're out to hurt people. And there are those people for sure. I would like to believe they're way more good folks than not. And as far as your previous comment, you know we are making a difference. I think that we do have a long way to go, but I think we're making a dent for sure. Listen, I don't know if I talked about it on the stream. I may have, but you might have heard or seen commercials on television and or radio and or your streaming services on OCD. You may have seen people that you know from the OCD community. I directed those with an amazing team and work with advocates. They're the first national commercials on TV. I'm not saying this to blow my own horn. I'm saying this because we're getting louder with our OCD advocacy. We're talking to people that we haven't spoken to before, and I've been so amazed at how the community has responded to these commercials, and outside of the community has responded saying, "Oh my God, I didn't know this was really OCD and what it looks like." And it's been really special to see how the community's responded and how people. I did 27 interviews doing OCD Awareness Week, educating the public, radio, television, news, and everybody was so receptive. So we are for sure, making a dent in it, and we have to take wins. It's silly in the sense that in 1999, on average, it was 17 years from diagnosis to treatment. It took 17 years, and it took me 17 years. And I think that statistic is now 10 to 14 years. Well, that's horrendous. It's awful. 1 year would be awful. I mean, 10 to 14 years is just like, it's bananas, but it's better than 17. And I don't want to dismiss a win. We're clawing and scratching, and I really think these wins are going to become exponential. I truly don't think it's going to be, it's going to take 10 years to gain a year. I really think this is the next big movement. I think we're making it a movement where we're loud and we're aggressive and we're obsessed with we're spreading the word. So I really truly think that over the next 5, 10, 15 years, we'll be able to shrink that number considerably and be talking about OCD and other mental diseases and disorders as openly as we're talking about cancer or MS or diabetes or anything else. And um, so thank you for all your comments, Luce. I really appreciate it. And please keep weighing in. So I guess on Facebook, there's an option to turn on your live chat. Not sure if it's an issue on our side or your side, but if you know of an option to turn on live chat, maybe take a gander at your Facebook and see if you can turn on live chat. I would honestly Google it real quick just to see if live chat Facebook, but for some reason, if you're joining us, we're not getting, or I'm not able to see Facebook comments in the chat box, in my chat box, which yeah, so I have a lot less comments to read. So please ask a question if you have one on Facebook, and Skylar will pass it along. in the private chat. If you have a YouTube account, jump over to YouTube, and you can leave comments there, and we'll definitely figure this out for next time for sure. Um, so um, in the meantime, we'll just keep plugging along. Rachel at 7:20 p.m. asked, when a professional person, police, rings someone who has had OCD severely and thinks a good way think to say how they have OCD too because they like things tidy. Epic fail. How can we educate the world? It's an epic fail for sure, and it's a great question. And I think the OCDF is doing an amazing job, and I think we have to do an even better job. And I think that is the goal, is we all recognize that. Rachel, we just did, as I was just saying, I just did a series of commercials, that are just playing in the US, unfortunately, right now. But they're real individuals talking about their real obsessive thoughts and compulsions. And, they're not talking about hand washing, or keeping things tidy. Obviously, the stigma, obviously, hand washing is a part of it. But this idea of, oh, I like things neat, I like things clean. This is something I talked about a ton when I did all those interviews during Awareness Week is, I kept hearing, yeah, but I like my desk neat. Yeah, but I like this. It's like the fact that you like that tells you off the bat it's not OCD. None of us like doing our compulsions. It's something we don't want to be doing. If you enjoy cleaning your kitchen, then chances are it's not OCD. It's a preference, so we have, but I think the true secret, and this is my own term, if you will, is I think we have to compassionately educate. I think that's really important. We have to come at it from an approach that 99% of the people just don't know. They're not trying to be mean. They're not trying to be malicious. They are genuinely trying to connect, even though their attempt at connection is like really stigmatizing, right? So it's like, oh yeah, no, I have OCD too. You're not alone. It's like, no, that was a crappy thing to say. So I think being able to gently correct and turn it around and then educate and direct your resources and things is really important. But I think it can be so easy, me included, to get really upset, especially in a situation that's really triggering and highly emotional, something like that, where a professional comes to your door and stigmatizes you. That's definitely not a good thing. And also, we have to train individuals that interface with individuals with OCD that aren't OCD experts: police, fire department, ambulance, EMTs, counselors, people that are sort of first line with individuals with OCD and any mental disorder, really, and help educate them so they have some basic understanding of OCD. And we're doing that too. This is a long and arduous process, advocacy, and there are a ton of areas to sort of bite off. And we are attempting to take on as many of those areas as possible. Some better than others, and there are so many areas to advocate in, and we're taking on as many as we can. But we can always improve, always do better, and can always use your support. So, like I said, I'll give out my email at the end, and if you have ideas, thoughts, we're always open to hearing them and supporting you as best we can to help you advocate in whatever ways you feel comfortable doing it. But yeah, that's an epic fail, Rachel. I'm sorry to hear that, and I hope you're well. I hope you're staying warm. Thank you, Deluce. What I love those Biohaven ads. Incredible work, Ethan. Thank you. And I appreciate you saying that, but I just wanted to use that as an example of we're doing things. We're doing things that are out of the box. We're doing things that are breaking the norm and a means to raise awareness. And that was important. I mean, if you're on this chat, that was important to me with those ads. Was, yes, we're recruiting a trial. I'm not pretending I'm not, or we're not. But what was so amazing about those ads and writing those ads and shooting those ads, and kudos to Biohaven, honestly, was they let me turn them into also education and awareness and advocacy, by allowing me to talk about real what if thoughts and real OCD and what, our struggle has been for decades. And that was really special. So I appreciate the comment. And yeah, if you haven't seen them and you're in the US, they're running nationally on streaming channels and broadcasts. So I think they were on the Today Show this morning. I had some friends from LA text me that they saw them. So yeah, let me know if you see them. Keep an eye out. But I love this conversation. Thank you for this conversation. It's all about stigma tonight, and I'm glad we're having it because it's important. So let me jump to Andrew. Let's see, where did Andrew go? There you are. And again, if you're joining us, welcome, welcome. I can't see Facebook comments, so if you're on Facebook and you want to jump over to YouTube, great. If not, and you're on Facebook and I have a question, Skylar will push it over to me. Also worth noting that I'm exhausted, so any attempt from thoughts to words that don't work out quite well, I apologize. Or I should just live with the discomfort that I sound dumb, and you're going to judge me for it and never come back. Let's go with that. Andrew wrote, do you correct at 7:22 p.m. Andrew wrote, do you correct people when they use the term OCD incorrectly? I was in a job interview recently, and one of my potential coworkers used the term as an adjective. Super awkward. It is. It is. And you know, that's a great question. And I think that unfortunately that is the big thing, right? OCD is not an adjective. It's not a descriptor. It's not a quirk. It's not a trait. It's not a superpower. It's not something cool. It's not a descriptor. It's a mental illness. When I was doing those radio interviews, I kept using the analogy, you know, would you tell someone who didn't have hair, they're so cancer? You know, that sounds preposterous. Like, who would say I'm so cancer? Nobody. But like, you know, somehow OCD has worked its way into this, you know, it really is the only mental illness or only disease that has somehow worked its way into the vernacular where people just, you know, use it as an adjective to describe neatness or cleanliness or whatever they think it is. So to answer your question, you know, for me, and it's different for everybody, I definitely gauge the situation, you know, and whatever the situation is. I think that if it's an unintended, you know, comment at work with some people, and you know, and it stings a little bit because you know you have OCD and they don't know that, and things like that, you know. Depending if you're in a place where you want to educate someone, you know, maybe taking that person aside later and saying, hey, I just wanted to let you know, OCD is a mental illness. You know, it's not an adjective. It's not a joke, you know, if you're open about it. If you're not open about it, you know, you can still educate, but they're going to ask like, well, why is that so important to you? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. You can say, it just is, you know, I don't think we should be using it as an adjective. I have family or friends that have OCD, you know, it's debilitating and awful and disrupts people's lives. And, you know, but, so it really is personal. I know lots of people that are and can be extremely offended by that or put off. It's definitely awkward to hear it. I get frustrated for sure when I hear it, you know, that you're so OCD or I'm so OCD or, you know, don't be so OCD about that or and whatever ways you're going to use it. So I personally don't go around correcting people for the most part, just because it's not usually a circumstance, a public circumstance to do it. I don't want to embarrass people. Again, most likely it isn't intentional. They don't understand OCD. It's not malicious. And so, you know, it's not really their fault. It's lack of education. However, there are times when I have, for instance, on airplanes a lot, I sit next to people when I'm flying for a speaking engagement and they'll ask where I'm going and I'll tell them, oh, what are you speaking on? Oh, OCD. Oh yeah. My friend's so OCD. Well, it's just the two of us on an airplane, you know, next to each other. I was like, well, actually, you know, in that kind of circumstance, I'll tend to correct. But again, with compassionate education, I will tell y'all, this is a story I haven't told before. So I was, it might have been the only time I really went off. When I was dating in Los Angeles, I was on OkCupid, and a psychiatrist on her dating profile and the opening paragraph had this whole thing about how she loves her work and blah, blah, blah. But if you're OCD, don't contact me. You people are the craziest. And I was like, are you effing kidding me? And I messaged this woman and I went off. I was like, you're a freaking psychiatrist. Like, you should not be perpetuating stigma. And I wrote her, I mean, it might have been a little angrier than I should have, but it really upset me. And she wrote me back and she's like, you're right, I'm sorry. And she removed it from her profile. And then I asked her out. No, I didn't ask her out. But that was a time I was like, seriously, what are you doing? But for the most part, I just kind of gauge it. If it's public, if it's, if it's a work thing, if I'm pretty sure, I'm most likely sure that it's just a lack of education situation, I'll let it go and just kind of be miffed to myself. But occasionally I will say something. Um, you know, it also depends if I'm around other people, or there's other people with OCD with me, and I feel defensive or protective of those people. But you can really gauge it situation by situation. And if it's an opportunity you want to use to educate some people and it feels right for you, then you absolutely can. And maybe have a way to do it already prepared, that's sincere and kind. Excuse the cats. That's sincere and kind and compassionate, but, lets people know that what they're saying can be hurtful. But for the most part, and especially in work situations, I generally just, let it go unless they're a good friend. And then I, bring it up later at a different time. But great question, Andrew. Hopefully that was helpful. Hi, Betsy. I see you're on. I see Skyla's post. So Betsy asks, I had a psychiatrist tell me once, why don't you just do one compulsion? That was my last visit. Sent her names of books to learn more. I love that. Come on. Why don't you just do one? I love that you sent her books or names of books. Let's go a step further. Let's just send them books. Let's send them pounds and pounds of books. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Jaber, question at 7:22 p.m. If I had to find a therapist to treat OCD for the first time, could you give some specifics of how you go about finding a therapist? Severe OCD anxiety is making search overwhelming. It can be really hard to do your own research and look for therapists when you're really struggling, for sure. I usually close my door because, as you know, in past streams, my cats have been extremely interruptive. Katie's actually at UGA, University of Georgia, speaking tonight, and they just claw at the door. So I've left it open. So I apologize if they're going nuts in the background. It can absolutely be overwhelming. I know for me, I couldn't have, when I was at my worst, it was really hard for me to even look for treatment, let alone function. So that's a great question. First of all, Skyla will put a link in the chats to interview a therapist. And these are great questions to make sure that the therapist that you're talking to is educated in exposure and response prevention and other first line treatments for OCD that we know or that are effective. A, so you don't waste your time and money, and B, so you don't so you aren't sicker, so you don't get sicker by going to them. I.e., hopefully they're not just doing talk therapy, which for OCD we know isn't helpful. Also, an easy way instead of just Googling is you can use the IOCDF resource directory, which we can also put a link to. You can search by zip code, state, area. And you can check off some boxes about, what you're looking for specifically, degrees and stuff like that. And it will give you a list of treatment providers in your area. These are all providers that we are fairly certain do exposure and response prevention and so forth. I will leave the caveat that just because they're on the IOCDF resource directory doesn't mean that the IOCDF endorses them or says they're amazing therapists. We simply know that they are an option in an area, and we do know that they do exposure and response prevention, which is why we also have some great articles on the IOCDF website about what you should ask them, which we encourage you. I highly encourage. I don't know, say we. I'm around all these like therapists and clinicians that say like, we recommend. I'm like, I'm not a we, I'm a you. So I recommend you interview. Don't be afraid to interview your therapist heavily. Do you do ERP? What does that look like? How long did you learn it? Where did you learn it? How long were you in school? What degrees do you have? How long you've been in practice? And also a little hack here is if you go to a clinician, if you go to a clinic, I should say, and not just a one person, a lot of times they'll have postdocs working there. And I know when we're seeking treatment, we want the best, we want the person with the longest, but a lot of times postdocs, they just don't have their licensure and they're getting their hours are really good. And they usually are a fraction of the cost of what, the clinic, the directors and the clinicians are. So, don't be afraid of sort of the young and postdocs. There's some really good ones out there that are learning and they really want to learn and want to help and they're compassionate. And you can usually get them a little cheaper than the licensed docs at the same clinics. So, but hopefully that gives you some initial thoughts as to how to find some treatment providers. And if you're not in the US, we can talk about that as well. But I'm sure Skyla put those in the chat, so hopefully that was helpful. Oh, thank you, Skyla. Skyla also wrote an IOCDF staff can help you go through the resource directory if you're having trouble navigating. So yeah. Well, feel free to email the IOCDF at info@iocdf.org. You can also give them a call. Thank you, Skyla. And they are happy to take you through the resource directory as well and help you um, connect with therapists and clinicians in an area near you. That's awesome. Thank you, Skyla. Appreciate that. Uh, 7:22 p.m. Too many good folks are timid, keeping quiet into themselves. I wish more of us would be squeaky wheels. I think you have to be a squeaky wheel. I also think though that, and the reason I gave Andrew the advice that I did is, different people are at different places with their recovery, and if you're confident about where you are, like I'll correct people all day long. I just choose carefully when it's appropriate and when it's effective. Like, is it going to be effective or not? But I know for some folks, if people don't know about their OCD, or especially in a work environment, it can be. Listen, I'm the first to tell you this should not be stigmatized. We should not even be having this conversation. Okay, you should be able to have OCD and be at work, and for people to know about it, just like anybody else has anything else. So we're coming from the same page. But I do know that for some folks, you may not want people asking you questions, or you may not want people to know. There is stigma in the workplace. There just is. Katie talks about it all the time, how, she lied on her psych evaluations when she was going to get ordained, because they said, hey, if you have issues, whatever they are, then they're not going to give you your ordination. And she only recently came out in the last year and a half, or 2 years, publicly about her story and talked about it. So she let other people know that clergy and clergy of all different faiths have mental illness too. But there is the right moment to do things. But I also agree, being a squeaky wheel, we have to be disruptors and innovators. And I remember I did a magazine interview in 2014, and I was telling my dad in the interview, I was telling my dad post interview, I said, yeah, I talked about that I went to a psychiatric hospital and what that was like. And he got really pissed. He was like, why would you say that? Like, I know that you gave a keynote, but that was in the OCD community and blah, 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 blah. Like, that could really, at the time I was still acting, but that could really impact your career. Why would you say that? And I was like, well, if I don't, who's going to? Not to say that there haven't been people that haven't, but like, if I don't say I was at a psychiatric hospital, misdiagnosed, and I had OCD, then somebody else needs to read that and go, it's okay for me to talk about it too. But I also think you have to be in a position for yourself where, if there is backlash, I can handle, or I'm comfortable with that. And I know for me, I was in a place in my recovery, and still am, where I'm okay talking about that, understanding that whatever may come my way may come my way. I've been fortunate in that in my advocacy career, I've had nothing but mostly positive feedback from everything that I've shared. So it's been a real blessing to be open and honest. But different advocacy is different for everybody, and it's very personal decision how you do it, when you do it, what you do, what you say, who you tell, and it's very personal. So I understand everybody's hesitation, and in their own time, for sure. Leanne wrote, do you have any advice for a mom of a newly diagnosed 8-year-old daughter? I'm new to this journey. Well, thanks. Great question, Leanne. First of all, I'm wondering how your daughter was diagnosed. If they were diagnosed by a doctor, treatment provider, clinician, if they do therapy or if they don't do therapy. 8 years old is not too young to be in exposure and response prevention therapy. In fact, treatment is incredibly effective with young kiddos. And it's amazing that she has a diagnosis so early and that you're here. And this is to our point earlier about advocacy. It's like, she was newly diagnosed. She's 8 years old. She's going to hear things. Leanne's going to hear things like exposure response prevention, the international OCD community, the international OCD foundation, the website, where to get help, where to get treatment. That's somebody who's not 17 years. That's somebody who's 10 years. That's somebody who's, hopefully a year less. And maybe you might discover that she's suffered for earlier. But so first things first is, if who they were diagnosed by, if they do the proper treatment, but definitely treatment, exposure and response prevention, and other modalities are really good too. Acceptance commitment therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy. Also, if there's any diagnosis in play, the biggest thing I can say for you, Leanne, is to be involved in the therapy. Obviously, you will be because she's 8, but also be involved. Don't be afraid to ask questions of the therapist. Don't be afraid to collaborate. And then just some tips, just some one-off things. Number one is, as you'll learn, parenting is counterintuitive to the treatment of OCD. As parents, you don't want to see your kids in pain or see your kids hurt or upset. And the treatment of OCD is really not giving in to the OCD. And in doing that, you might make your daughter really upset. And I think it's important to recognize that your daughter and her OCD are two different things. They're separate. Your daughter is not her OCD. And so if you're not, as you get into therapy and you get involved in therapy and you're told not to reassure, not to enable, not to say certain things that make her comfortable or do certain things that make her comfortable, that's going to piss off her OCD. And you're going to see her upset or cry or anxious, and to recognize that you're not hurting her, you're making her better in those moments, and to try to separate that OCD. Or if she gets angry, or if she says hurtful things or acts in a hurtful way to you, to recognize that that's her OCD throwing a tantrum. That is not your daughter not loving you. And making some of those separations are really important. If you have any guilt, let the guilt go. It's a process, but OCD is a family disorder, and OCD is very good at making parents work for them as much as, hey, Justin Hughes is in the house. Hey, Justin, good to see you. OCD is very good at getting families to work for it, right? So just recognizing some of those things. And the other thing is, try not to be the OCD police. It can be really easy once you learn some of the things to, try and want to correct all the time when there's a compulsion or an obsession or your daughter's engaging in something. And, you need to be mom. And that doesn't mean that you aren't going to, prevent her from compulsing or not engage in her compulsions or obsessions or things like that. But also you don't, let her therapist be the therapist, you be mom. And, if you're with a good treatment provider, they will definitely help you navigate what that looks like. But just some initial thoughts, first and foremost, know that your daughter's not your OCD. It's a disorder, it's a disease. At that age, there's so much hope. And I know it can feel a little intimidating right now and scary and all of those things. And that's completely normal. But just so many things to be hopeful and encouraged by. And that's true for anybody here. But I would be super excited about being 8 years old and engaging in treatment, and recognizing that you're not alone. She's not alone. We have an incredible kiddo community. If you want to reach out and speaking to other moms who have been through similar is really helpful as well. And I know you can reach out to the IOCDF, and we can connect you with other parents as well. So hopefully that's some quick tidbits. But you're definitely not alone, and I'm super excited that she has a diagnosis and potentially can access care. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you, Skyla. So the continuation is, Leanne wrote, thanks for the advice. It's great to hear. I feel like I'm constantly straddling accommodation and enabling. We call her OCD the bully. I love that. And OCD is a bully. And OCD is a nasty bully, but you're going to learn some really good skills and tools to help manage that bully, so we don't give the bully attention, so the bully stops bullying, which is what happens. And constantly straddling is difficult as a parent. It's sometimes, so like I said, you're trained by the OCD, and sometimes it's hard to tell what's the OCD and what's your daughter asking for something. And hopefully the therapist, when you work with a therapist, will help you understand when it's OCD and when it's not. And what you'll learn also is that, what you'll notice, sorry, I read a comment and lost my train of thought. And I'll remember that thought in 5 minutes. What did I want to say to you? Yeah, it was brilliant, but I read a comment and I apologize. But if I think of it, Leanne, I will surely come back to you. But I'm super excited, and the straddling will feel different. Oh, I remember. Don't be afraid to communicate. And again, follow your therapist's advice. But we don't have to be, when it comes to OCD. How we word things so kiddos understand is important. But you don't have to hide a lot about it. You don't have to be tricky about it. Saying things, I love you, but I'm not going to flip this light switch for you 3 times because it makes you sicker. And I don't want you to be sicker because I love you. I want you to be well. And I know it feels icky right now, but we're just going to have to feel icky right now. Okay. And that's why I'm not going to do this or whatever, insert right compulsion or enabling. And again, your therapist can help you with that conversation, but you're allowed to have communicative conversations with your kids and explain why you're not going to do something and help them understand that, mommy loves you and doesn't want you to get sicker. So we're going to do what we know is best. That kind of thing. It's really helpful. Real quick on the job front, Marie says they were sacked for a job after they found out about their OCD, even though it didn't affect performance. Stigma is still there. Absolutely. It is. And that's why I hate to give in to the stigma, but it really is a case-by-case situation at work. Whether you divulge what the situation is, it shouldn't be that way, but it doesn't mean that we still have to be realistic about where we are in our movement and how to handle it. So don't want anybody to have to get fired. And I'm sorry for that, but thank you for sharing. That's kind of why I was saying, it really depends on the situation, for sure. Let's see here. Where was I in my questions? Andrew David, I don't correct people using OCD incorrectly. I attempt to enlighten. This is at 7:27 p.m. Thank you. There's a powerful difference between shaming someone and educating them. Tact and compassion are huge. Couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely. Compassion and education. Yep. Yeah. Okay. We're on the same page. Awesome. And thank you, Rachel. I appreciate. Duluth. I appreciate that. There's no need to donate for the campaign at all. It's great that you're a part of it. I think that's amazing, and thank you so much. That is donation enough for sure. Chris at 7:30 p.m. asked me, "Are you still affected by OCD? Like, do you still get trapped at times, and how often is it?" I'm in recovery, so I'm kind of curious how I should think about being recovered. Great question. And if I didn't get to, we're running short on time, and I have a feeling. Well, let's answer this question. So the answer is yes. The answer is also way less than I was. And everything has a season. So I've been in recovery, and maintenance and management for my OCD since 2011. I say that because that's when I was at my worst and went through gazillion months of treatment until getting better and moving out to LA. Okay. So we're talking now almost 12 years, which is incredible. In these 12 years, my mantra is more good days than bad. And I have most definitely had more good days than bad. What does that mean? Good days are days, months, hours, years not years, but days, months without having, too many obsessive thoughts or too many compulsions, following my values, living a value-driven life, acting in accordance with what's important to me, not letting OCD dictate my function or choices. I can say that, overwhelmingly in the last 12 years, OCD has mostly not gotten to dictate the majority of my choices. Okay. That is not to say that OCD hasn't interfered. It has. That is not to say that I don't have obsessions. I do. I think what you'll find as you enter maintenance is, the obsessions quiet down quickly, but that doesn't mean that they disappear. They, can pop up with stress and pop up with different seasons and different times, something that's going on, good stress, bad stress, new job, death in the family, whatever it is. The real piece of success to remaining in recovery is the resisting compulsions. And that's really the key to relapse too, is our choice of whether to compulse or not. You need both to have the disorder. You need to obsess and compulse. Compulsions keep the obsessions going. So, when I got better and I started, the obsessions got loud again. I was like, oh my God, I'm sick again. And then, my therapist quickly reminded me, you're only sick if you compulse, if you engage in a lot of compulsions. And I quickly was like, oh, not going to compulse. And the thoughts quieted down. So, I have OCD thoughts all the time. Sometimes they're screaming. Sometimes they're really quiet. Sometimes I don't notice them at all. Most days are really, really good. Over the course of this year, this has been a tougher year than most years. And I've talked about that a lot on the stream. But I see a therapist once a week. Do we talk about OCD the majority of the time? I would say no. We barely talk about OCD. It's about navigating life, navigating new experiences, navigating other issues, life issues. She's an OCD specialist, but I really just utilize her like a therapist. But the good news is, if OCD, decide to rear its ugly head, then we have a conversation about it, and that's good that she knows. Um, so I can definitely get trapped, but the loops are much shorter. The recovery times are much shorter. I can get triggered and be back at it in 5 seconds, 10 seconds. There are things that happen to me that maybe get me stuck for 5 minutes that would have put me in bed for 6 days before I got better. And those are all wins, and I can recognize those as wins and go, wow, man, if that had happened like before I got better, I would have ducked out of life for a week. Now it's like, yeah, 5 minutes I was uncomfortable. There's been very few instances in the last 12 years where OCD has stopped me in my tracks and prevented me from living. Maybe once, and it wasn't even a real. I mean, I haven't had a relapse. But I'm proactive with my OCD work. I'm proactive with, response prevention and prevention of compulsions, and actively embracing my obsessions. And when new things pop up, being willing to sit with the discomfort and uncertainty. And sometimes I have to work harder than others. And during those times, I stigmatize myself too and ask myself, why do I have to work harder? What's wrong with me? What did I do differently? What mistakes am I making? So just like life, it's not perfect. There's ups, there's downs, but for me, way more good days than bad. And the real secret to it is just being willing to embrace the uncertainty of life, just beyond OCD. Like, just embrace all the uncertainty, and be willing to sit with the discomfort. Let the scary stuff be there. Understand that it's OCD. It's most likely OCD. Could it happen? Might it happen? Is there a percentage that it could happen? Did it happen? Sure. But if, when, and then I'll cross that bridge. And until then, I'm going to live presently in the moment and pursue the things that I care about. And I have to do it. If I have to do it uncomfortably, then I will. Right. But truly, it does get better. And if I know that OCD is chronic, there's no cure. But if this is what chronic looks like, I'm in. I'll take it. I was completely bedridden, unable to function, and missing out on life. And the first 30 years of my life weren't easy. If this is chronic, then I'm a winner, for sure, and I'll take it. So it's a great question. And I guess the short answer, which you all know I'm not good at short answers, is, there's no one way to be recovered. Recovery doesn't look the same for everybody. It's a different experience for everybody because we're all in different places in our lives doing different things. What I can tell you is, it's something that it's something that you have to work towards continuously. It's kind of like taking a medication. I was doing better, so I got off the medication. Well, what happened? Well, I got worse. It's like, okay, it's because you stopped taking the medication. You still have to do the work when it pops up. You still have to be willing to sit with discomfort and uncertainty. But truly, as you're saying, you're in recovery. You were not. So, being recovered is an amazing experience. The last thing I'll add that I just thought about was that, being recovered doesn't mean that life is sunshine and rainbows. And I genuinely thought it was going to be. I genuinely thought, oh, once I have this OCD under control, like, everything's going to come easy in life. Okay, well, that's not life. I learned that. It took me a few years, but I suddenly realized that life isn't easy. That goes for anybody that doesn't have OCD. So you add OCD on top of it. So I think that's the other piece of it, is slowly reintegrating into life, understanding that things are still hard. And things may be triggering, and there's no right or wrong way. There's just, you're learning all the time. I'm still doing new things that I didn't learn or do before. And I'm just grateful to be doing that. And I think for all of us here, the word of the day is gratitude. Even if you're having a crappy day, if you're having a crappy day because life is making you crappy and not OCD, I'm grateful for those days, because that means, I'm engaged in something. That means I'm living, I'm doing it. And that excites me. That excites me. If life is making it challenging, then that's okay. I'm okay with that. I don't have to like it, but I'm okay with that. If OCD is preventing me, then there's something I need to work on. And I say that extremely humbly because it's hard sometimes. And what I mean by work on is simply just use my skills and tools, take out the tool belt and toolkit, and utilize the things that you've learned in an effort to continue to live in maintenance and management and recovery. The last piece analogy I'll give you is it's not perfect, and I said that before, but I have a friend that has MS, and she does everything she's supposed to. I mean, this woman, exercises, eats all the things, does the infusions, and you know what? She'll call me and be like, "I can't walk today," or "I've got double vision," or "I can't feel my left arm." She didn't do anything different. It's just the nature of the disease, and sometimes she stigmatizes herself too. But it's just the nature of the disease. And OCD is very, very similar. We can be doing all the things that we know to do. And for whatever reason, OCD can get really, really loud and really enticing to want to compulse. And you may. But being able to have self-compassion around that, being able to love yourself in spite of that, to recognize that it's disease, it's not a decision, it's not who you are, and sort of just recognize, all right, that was yesterday. That was a crappy day. I'm going to get back to it now because that's how OCD is. So, and recognizing that it's a continued process is goes a long way in sustained recovery. So I love that question. It's a great question, Chris. Thank you so much. So it's a little after 8. I'm so sorry if I didn't get to your questions. Real quick, I would like to highlight that I saw Katie is running for OCD in Maryland this weekend. That's inspiring and unique. Are you running as well? Or are you captain of Katie's pit crew at the 70? Yes. So Katie she does 50 ultras for in 50 states to raise money for OCD treatment. Ultras are, I learned this from her, are ultra marathons are 30 miles or more. I appreciate you suggesting that I might be running with her. The answer is no, definitely not. I always like those couples who get together and it's like, yeah, like she was into that thing. And I was like, I'm going to try it now. I'm super into it. Well, that didn't happen here. I saw her run 35 miles and I was like, I don't want to do that ever. Like that doesn't look fun. So we call me her Sherpa. I love to support her. I do the 1/4 mile ice chest drag where I bring all the waters from the car to the tent that we've set up. But that's as far as I run. Unfortunately, this is going to be the first race I'm missing. I'm not going to be there. I'm going to be here working and taking care of the cats. Her family's in Maryland, so she's going to be with them. So she'll be in good hands. But yeah, she's inspiring and amazing. And so thank you that caught my eye. So I'll let her know you said hi. And she usually does tons of reports on social. So you'll see ice chest drag. Oh yeah, it's real. It's real. When you have to park the car that 1/4 mile, you have to drag that heavy ice chest, and there's the wheels are breaking and all right, let's wrap this up. And I apologize I didn't get to everyone. It was a kind of a weird stream. I apologize with not being able to see Facebook comments, but thank you to everyone who commented on Facebook and YouTube. Really, really appreciate you. All right, so thank you to Skyla and the IOCDF thank you to Skyla for behind the scenes and feeding me the comments and questions. You rock. Deleuze, I do these. First of all, I appreciate the kind words. Every other Tuesday. So 2 weeks from today, we will be doing another one. So every 2 weeks, unless otherwise specified. Occasionally I can't make it because of a prior commitment. But last couple weeks ago, we were giving away prizes and doing all kinds of fun stuff for OCD Awareness Week. Thank you, Rachel. So yeah, every 2 weeks. So whatever that date is, we will be here on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So we'll see you then, Deleuze, for sure. Anyway, thank you to the IOCDF and Skyla for behind the scenes. Some scheduling stuff for the rest of this week. You can join lead advocate Chris Tronson and Jessica Serber tomorrow as they discuss the topic of shame and OCD for this month's Lunch and Learn. That's at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. You can also submit questions ahead of time at iocdf.org/peace of mind. And also, you can view all the live streams and see the entire live stream schedule at Peace of Mind, iocdf.org/peace of mind. There's still more walks happening this month for 1 million steps for OCD. You can visit iocdf.org/walk to find a walk happening near you and join us as we embrace uncertainty one step at a time. Finally, registration for the online OCD conference on November 4th through 6th is open. Visit onlineocdconference.org to learn more and register. If you missed the in-person conference, or we know that it can be expensive, especially with airfare being $1 billion a ticket. This is your chance. This is a great conference. We started during the pandemic, and they're ongoing, as many virtual conferences are that we're putting on. So this is fantastic. Tons of good panels, live discussions, activity events. There's an exhibit hall with tons of cool booths. There's live chats. Great way to meet people all around the world. It's such a cool experience. So I encourage you to visit the website and sign up. If you have questions about it, you can absolutely email me. And I'll give my email at the end, and I can give you more information about that. Yeah, if you love this live stream or others, please remember to like and subscribe to get notified when live streams go live and our schedules. If you need resources, as we said, you can visit iocdf.org. Finally, if you want to reach me and email me, you can email me at justethan@iocdf.org. That is my email address. I'm the only one that answers that email. No one else sees it. So please feel free to be as open and candid as you need. It stays between us, and I am happy to answer questions, comments. If you have suggestions, if you love what I said, if you hated what I said, feel free to leave a comment. With that, thank you all for being amazing. Thank you for advocating and your remarks and connecting with folks. Yes, I will. I am behind on my emails. Deleuze called me out. Fair. I will respond to your email for sure. Very fair. Appreciate that's funny. So thank you so much for spending your Tuesday night with us. Have a wonderful day, evening. Stay safe, stay vigilant, feel the feels. Have an awesome Halloween if you observe, and don't let OCD off the hook. So stick with the uncertainty, or as Katie says, stick with the ick. And we'll see you 2 weeks from tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern. Tomorrow, community lunch and learn with Chris. Have a beautiful evening. We'll see you next time. Good night.